The Masnavi, an Oceanic text of spiritual axiology and poetic ontology. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Sufi Essence with Hamid Said. The Masnavi, Manavi, or spiritual couplets. Penned by the great 13th century sage Jalal al-Din Muhammad Rumi, stands as an unparalleled monument in the history of world literature and spiritual thought. It is not merely a book of poetry. It is a vast 6-volume encyclopedia of the human soul, a spiritual ocean in which seekers of truth have immersed themselves for over 7 centuries. Its very title, Spiritual Couplets, belies the profound depth of its content, which uses simple rhyming verses to articulate the most intricate theological, metaphysical, and psychological truths of the Sufi path. The Masnavi's enduring power lies in its unique pedagogical approach, which bypasses the intellectual faculties of the mind and speaks directly to the heart, guiding the seeker from the realm of multiplicity to the reality of divine unity. Today, we will undertake a comprehensive analysis of this monumental text. We will move beyond a superficial reading of its parables to engage with the intricate architecture of Rumi's genius. Our discourse will argue that the Masnavi's greatness lies in its unique structure, which employs a masterful blend of storytelling, aphorism, and digression to dismantle the ego's false narratives and illuminate the path of love. Our analysis will be structured in 3 main parts. First, a deep dive into the formal structure and pedagogical method of the Masnavi. Second, an exploration of its core metaphysical and psychological themes, including the nature of the self and the doctrine of divine unity. And third, an examination of the practical path it prescribes for the seeker, centered on the role of the spiritual guide and the transformative power of love and pain. Our ultimate objective is to elucidate how the Masnavi serves, not just as a book to be read, but as a living manual for the annihilation of the ego Fana and the attainment of union with the divine. Part 1. The structure and pedagogical method of the Masnavi. The genius of the Masnavi is rooted as much in its form as in its content. Rumi's choice of the Mathnoi poetic form couplets of rhyming verses in a simple, steady meter is a deliberate and masterful pedagogical decision. This form, in contrast to the more complex and structured ghazal, allows for a fluid, narrative flow that is both accessible to the common person and capable of carrying the weight of profound philosophical ideas. The simplicity of the form is a deliberate attempt to bypass the overly intellectualized mind and allow the wisdom to seep directly into the heart, much like a flowing stream that gently erodes the stone beneath it. The most distinctive feature of the Masnavi's pedagogy is Rumi's use of storytelling. He does not use stories to entertain, he uses them to teach. His narrative style is often described as nonlinear. Rumi begins a story, weaves in countless digressions, parables, anecdotes, aphorisms, and direct addresses to the reader, and then returns to the original narrative with a new, deeper layer of spiritual meaning. This meandering, associative style is not a sign of disorganization. It is a meticulously crafted method of instruction. By constantly breaking the thread of the story, Rumi forces the reader to abandon their linear, dualistic mode of thinking. The mind, accustomed to following a single narrative path, is forced to surrender to the unpredictable flow of spiritual wisdom, mirroring the seeker's own journey on the path of Sufism, which is often chaotic and defies a simple, logical progression. Consider the famous story of the elephant in the dark room. Rumi begins by describing an elephant in a dark room and the men who, wanting to know what it is, feel different parts of its body. One man feels the trunk and says the elephant is like a waterspout. Another feels the ear and says it is like a fan. A third feels the leg and says it is like a pillar. Rumi then uses this simple parable to explore the nature of human perception and the inability of the limited intellect to grasp the absolute reality of God. The men's descriptions are not wrong in themselves, but they are incomplete. Rumi's lesson here is about the fragmented nature of human knowledge and the necessity of moving beyond partial truths to a holistic understanding, a state that can only be achieved through the annihilation of the ego, which is the source of all fragmentation. Another powerful pedagogical tool in the Masnavi is the use of everyday life as a source of spiritual metaphor. Rumi takes the mundane a merchant and a parrot, a mouse and a frog, a man who finds a snake and thinks it is a treasure, and transforms it into a profound spiritual lesson. This method allows the reader to connect with the wisdom of the Masnavi on a personal, experiential level. The stories are not just fables. They are spiritual mirrors in which the reader can see their own struggles, their own fears, and their own ego. The story of the man who mistakes a snake for a treasure, for example, is a powerful allegory for the seeker who mistakes worldly desires for spiritual fulfillment. Rumi's message is that the path to God is often found in the most unexpected places, and that the greatest obstacles are often those we fail to recognize within ourselves. The Masnavi's pedagogical genius also lies in its use of paradox. The text is replete with seemingly contradictory statements. Life is death, death is life. Separation is union, union is separation. These paradoxes are not intellectual games. They are spiritual exercises designed to shatter the mind's reliance on dualistic logic. The intellect, which operates on the principle of either-or, is a barrier to spiritual reality, which is a state of both and. By presenting these paradoxes, Rumi forces the reader to confront the limitations of their own intellect and open their heart to a reality that transcends all dualities, a state known as Wahdat al-Wujud, the oneness of being. The Masnavi is thus a manual for deconstruction, a tool that systematically dismantles the false narratives of the mind to reveal the truth of the heart. Part 2. Core metaphysical and psychological themes in the Masnavi. At the heart of the Masnavi lies a rich tapestry of metaphysical and psychological themes that form the theoretical foundation of Rumi's spiritual path. The text is a constant effort to point the seeker back to a few central truths, the most important of which is the doctrine of divine unity, Wahdat al-Wujud, the oneness of being. The central metaphysical doctrine of the Masnavi is Wahdat al-Wujud. Rumi, like his great predecessor Ibn Arabi, teaches that there is only one true reality, which is the existence of God. All of creation, with its bewildering multiplicity, is nothing but a manifestation, a reflection, or a shadow of that one reality. The world is not a separate entity from God. It is the outward form of a single, all-encompassing reality. Rumi uses the analogy of the ocean and the waves to explain this. The waves, in their apparent individuality, are nothing but the ocean itself. They rise from the ocean and return to it. The Masnavi is a constant reminder that the individual self, with its separate identity, is like a wave, a temporary form of the one eternal ocean, which is God. The spiritual journey, then, is the process of realizing this truth, of transcending the illusion of the separate wave and merging back into the infinite ocean of being. The self and the ego nafs. Central to Rumi's psychological analysis is the nature of the self, which he divides into the ego nafs and the soul ruh. The ego is the false self, the source of all our attachments, our desires, our fears, and our pride. It is the greatest veil that separates the seeker from God. The nafs is a subtle but powerful enemy, and Rumi's stories are filled with allegories about its cunning and its deception. For example, the story of the 4 travelers who find a treasure but fight over how to spend it is a metaphor for the ego's inability to see the ultimate reality even when it is right in front of them. The ego's greatest illusion is its belief in its own independent existence. The soul ruh, in contrast, is the true self, a spark of the divine, a reflection of the divine reality. The soul's true nature is love, light, and unity. The journey of the Masnavi is a journey from the false self of the ego to the true self of the soul. This journey is not a journey to a distant place. It is a journey inward, a journey of stripping away the layers of illusion that have been built up by the ego. The Masnavi is a guide that provides the seeker with the tools to identify the ego's tricks and to begin the process of its annihilation. The soul's primal separation, firak. As we discussed in our previous lecture on Rumi, the theme of firak separation is the existential starting point of the Masnavi. The famous opening lines of the reed flute's lament are not just a poetic flourish. They are an articulation of the soul's primal state of separation from its divine origin. This separation is the source of all human suffering and longing. The Masnavi is the voice of this lament, a continuous reminder of the soul's true home. This pain of separation is a blessing, for it is this very pain that drives the seeker on the path to union. Without the pain of separation, there would be no yearning, no spiritual quest. The Masnavi transforms this pain from a source of despair into a source of hope, teaching the seeker that the very ache in their heart is a sign of their connection to the beloved. Part 3. The Path of the Seeker and the Role of the Spiritual Guide. The Masnavi is not a theoretical text. It is a practical manual for spiritual transformation. Rumi does not just tell the reader about God, he tells them how to find God. This path, as articulated in the Masnavi, is centered on the role of the spiritual guide, the transformative power of love, and the necessity of spiritual disciplines, the necessity of the guide peer. Rumi's own life and his relationship with his spiritual master, Jamzi Tabrizi, informs the Masnavi's teaching on the necessity of a spiritual guide peer. Rumi insists that no one can embark on this journey alone. The ego is too cunning, and the path is too treacherous. The guide is not an intermediary to God, but a living mirror in which the seeker can see their own flaws and their own potential. The guide is the catalyst that awakens the dormant love for God in the seeker's heart. Rumi uses the story of Moses and Khidr from the Quran to illustrate this point. Moses, a prophet, a man of immense spiritual station, was told that he needed to follow Khidr, a man with a different kind of spiritual knowledge. The story demonstrates that even a prophet needs a guide, a teacher who can show him a reality that is beyond his own intellectual and rational understanding. This story is a powerful allegory for the seeker's need to surrender to the guidance of a spiritual master who can see what they cannot. Love is the engine of transformation. The central engine of the spiritual path, according to the Masnavi, is love. It is a force that is both destructive and creative. It is a fire that burns away the ego, and it is a light that illuminates the path. Rumi teaches that love is the only force capable of annihilating the ego. The intellect can try to understand God, but only love can experience God. The Masnavi is a hymn to this love, a continuous call to abandon the path of reason and to embark on the path of passion. Rumi's most famous verses on love are a testament to this. The lover's religion is separate from all religions. The religion of the lover is God alone. This does not mean that the lover abandons their religion, but that their religion is no longer a set of intellectual beliefs, but a living experience of divine love. The Masnavi is a manual for this love, teaching the seeker how to cultivate it, how to surrender to it, and how to allow it to transform them. The role of spiritual disciplines. The Masnavi is not an abstract philosophical text. It is a guide for practice. Rumi, while often associated with ecstasy and divine intoxication, was a firm believer in the necessity of spiritual disciplines. The Masnavi alludes to and describes a variety of practices that help the seeker on their path. One of the most important of these is the practice of sema, the whirling, the listening to music and poetry, which for Rumi was a spiritual discipline designed to induce a state of ecstasy and to break the ego's hold. Sema is a physical manifestation of the soul's journey, the turning of the seeker around the spiritual axis of God. Another important discipline is dhikr, remembrance of God, which is the constant invocation of the divine names, a practice that purifies the heart and keeps the seeker's mind focused on the beloved. The Masnavi is a testament to these practices, which provide the seeker with the practical tools to navigate the spiritual path. Conclusion: the enduring legacy of the Masnavi. The Masnavi is a book that transcends its time and its place. It is a work of immense spiritual and literary genius that speaks to the universal human condition and the soul's innate yearning for the divine. Its pedagogical method, which uses stories, paradoxes, and digressions to speak directly to the heart, makes it a timeless manual for spiritual transformation. The Masnavi is not a book to be merely read. It is a spiritual companion to be lived. Its message is a call to awaken from the slumber of the ego and to embark on the journey of love back to the ultimate beloved. The enduring legacy of the Masnavi is a testament to the universality of Rumi's message. It speaks to people of all faiths and all backgrounds because it addresses the most fundamental human questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? What is our purpose? Rumi's answers, delivered with poetic grace and spiritual depth, resonate with every soul that is on a quest for meaning. The Masnavi teaches us that the path to God is a path of love, and that the greatest pain is nothing but a divine grace that prepares the heart for the ultimate union. It is a text that does not just describe a spiritual path. It is the path itself, a living, breathing guide that continues to lead countless seekers to the divine light.